Hey, hold up. Before we continue on the episode, I just wanted to ask you quickly if you've heard of Anchor. If you haven't heard of Anchor, it's the easiest way to make podcasts today. Let me explain. First of all, it is free, completely free, and there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit the podcast right from your phone or computer. And the best part of it is you don't have to do anything else. Like you just upload, like you make your podcast with the tools available to you and you upload it. And Anchor does the distribution yourself. Like it distributes your podcast for you so you can be heard on different platforms. You can be heard on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and many more. And with the amount of audience you have, the amazing thing, you can make some money from your podcast. And it's everything you need. Anchor is just everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. You don't have to go to different studio sessions and look for places to take your recordings to or your work to. Your projects are just there for you and you manipulate it how you want. And today you can download the free Anchor app. Just go right now, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you. So let's get back to the session. Every time we lose something, that is some way, somehow, a partial loss of who we are. Today on Each, we want to talk about steps to deal with loss. This is for sure a very difficult thing to talk about, as you would agree. As a subject, it is difficult because it is a deeply emotional talk, and also because we all have different ways we react to things and different defense mechanisms. For sure, I didn't really feel at liberty at first to talk about this, not at this early stage of this podcast journey, but I have had a few losses myself in the past years in my life, and for a few days I have had my mind reminiscing on things I have lost in the past. Most especially the demise of my late father at an unexpected time. So I thought to myself, hey, why not share a little about how you think you handled your losses? Someone out there might need a word or two from it. So here it goes, guys. My undiluted opinions. Hi, and welcome back to Each. Now we are going to be diving into this talk, but I want you to have it in mind that we are not going to cover everything on this segment, but we do our best to talk about a few ways to cope and handle loss and round it up in the future. It is quite a difficult lesson to learn. Learning how to handle broken relationships, how to handle our pasts, how to handle parts of ourselves, and the loss of loved ones, because that is generally what we hope to cover in this conversation. And every form of loss, there is, I hope, we'll be able to cover up here. But before we continue, just a quick note. In our upcoming episode, we would want to present an opportunity to share your own opinions or experiences right here on our channel. We are going to get people to listen to your opinion on the topic, and you can share your story. But if you would like to, of course, participate, you can reach out to us through our email, nytpen@gmail.com. That is spelled KNYTPEN@gmail.com. Or you can go to the Instagram handle of one of our sponsors at callmebenjr and leave us a short message, an email, a comment, or right here on the podcast. You can also leave us a voice message if you want. Just indicate your interest and we'll reach out to you. I mean, your voice could be the next to be shared on our episodes. It's quite exciting. And you could be the one teaching us from your own experiences and opinions right here on this channel. Now, back at the topic. So, today on Age, I'm going to share this conversation with you, starting with my own personal experience. I have lost a lot of things, obviously, in life, just like many of you listeners might have lost as well. And this is just life. It's as sad as it may, as sad as it may be, it is life. And who are we to receive the good and not lose, right? And not receive the bad ones as well. But of all of the things lost, of all of the things I've mentioned earlier that I lost, the death of my late father was the most devastating one for me. Now, the crazy thing about loss is the way it gets to us emotionally. What makes it get to us that emotional is seldom the fact that it's the fact that we seldom expect it when it hits, it comes unexpectedly. So, like in my case, when I heard about the death of my late father, for a long time after I heard the news, I never really accepted it fully. I mean, as shocked as I was, I didn't cry about it. I acted completely in denial, for a few weeks. And man, I felt so strong. I was so strong, I felt. I treated it as completely, like I treated it as though it was completely a different news. As though a not so close friend of mine, informed me of losing a relative. You know how that seems like when a friend of yours that is not that close to you informs you of him losing his relative, I think I could compare it to that. Except for the fact this time that this is my immediate family and I was actively involved in it because I had to pretty much take big decisions, to make decisions as regards to the burial arrangements and all that, for the burial and everything. So it was that heavy. It was very heavy, but yet I acted so strong. I acted in denial, as I would like to. I like to think about it. Now, in the beginning, in the introduction, I told you that every time we lose something, that is some way or somehow a partial loss of who we are. Because that person we are to that person has just been lost. What the we are to us becomes a memory. So that is partially like a loss to us too. Obviously, there are other forms of losses like breakups, divorce, cases of accidents where properties are lost, or even the loss of your cell phone could be painful, as funny as that sounds, but especially if you saved your last penny to get a device and you lose it, it hurts. But I'm keeping this conversation more on the loss of loved ones because it is the only loss far worse, and if I'd add, is irrevocable. Breakups can be fixed, properties can be rebought, death is actually death, and there's no going back on that. So I was actually playing the strong person role, but it wasn't really a role. I am actually a strong person, but I refused to break down over that loss, which at that time felt good as I was cheering other people up, giving them reasons to stay bright and look forward. It was a few weeks later. Everything had grown quiet, and I felt it one day. That realization appeared on one early morning, which is what I'm going to get into right away. No, now take note. I am not saying there's any quick relief for stress or loss, as the case may be. It takes its own time, but how long that takes for us to heal depends on us and how we handle it. So, what makes loss hurt so bad? Let's look at that. Now, no one of us is a stranger to loss. We in one way or the other, somebody, you that is listening to this, we have all lost something, somebody, maybe a family member, a relative, or friend. We've lost relationships, both romantic ones, friendships, jobs, communities, and some of us have lost beliefs in ourselves or in others. Now, every loss, of course, is a form of death because there once existed an experience, there once existed a thing, there was once an idea, there was once a kind of person, that person that brought some kind of meaning to your life, and for some reason, this meaning is no longer there. Now, that is the basic reason the loss hurts us so bad. The meaning that has suddenly ended, and there is a loss. We are forced to feel this internal void. We feel the heaviness of the word never, because it can never be returned, it can never go back, it cannot be changed. That is gone. That is why it is the meaning of that is what makes loss, or that is what makes the loss hit us right in the heart in a very heavy emotional way. So to deal with this, like in my case, as I was sharing, acting in denial isn't going to help us really. It will only act as a procrastinator. Someday we are still going to fall into it. We are still going to feel it. So the first step to deal with loss, as I would like to begin with the steps. The first step I would like to share here now is that we have to understand the way our memories work. We have to understand that our memories can be a great liar. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but just let me explain. Don't shoot me yet. It sounds untrue, but it is true. Our memories do really know how to lie to us. It convinces us that everything was splendid and wonderful back then, even though it wasn't. I'll give you an example, okay? Now, have you ever met up with your ex some years later and then you ask yourself, so I really dated this person? Like, oh, wow, you're surprised because you find out they're not really the top. They're not, you'll be surprised. You ask yourself, you're in doubt of yourself, and you're asking yourself, did I really date this person? Right. That is because our memories aren't accurate, because it tends to choose to remember the best qualities of our pasts. So what our memory does is it deletes the tiring and monotonous parts and just remembers the highlights, which is what happens also when we hate someone. You remember just the highlights of how bad this person treats you, and never would your memory choose to remember the times he was good to you. Our brain is fond of thinking there is one thing that will make us happy, that there is one thing that will fix this problem we lack. But when we find it, you see, the funny part is when we find it, there's always one more thing just beyond the horizon. This is something I found out through research that is called the hedonic treadmill. In all of this, what our mind does is simply reaching out for something to remove us from the present. And the present is where happiness really is. If we start looking more into the present, that this person is no longer here. We have lost this person. We only have the memory to keep, to preserve, to not making wishes and wanting to take things back, because that is when our memories travel most into remembering those beautiful times we shared with these people and the things we have lost, forgetting about the present and what would come, how beautiful and amazing things would get in the future. So this is a very important step. Being in the present, not making our memories a wishful memory. Just preserve the memories and don't judge them. This way you start to feel better. Now Now, this was what I did first. After I left the denial stage of my loss, I was able to reach out to the present. I was able to sit down and realize the present, that this has happened and this is where I'm at. I have to face the present. Now, the second step is to accept what has happened completely and feel your emotions. You know, once this is something you cannot change. Once you know this is something you cannot change, this loss is something you've lost, you accept it. And you don't judge yourself if you have to let yourself cry. If you want to do that, do it. Whichever way is your best way of expressing your sorrowful emotion, just let it all out without judgment. It is completely okay. Now, I remember that early morning, my realization came. And I was taking a walk then, I remember. And one of the sad songs on my playlist just kicked in, you know. What that did that morning, it just oozed into my deeper feelings, and I couldn't help it. And I couldn't help it at all. All my thoughts flooded in, and all I could see all I could see as I walked, as I was taking that walk, was all about the memories of my late father. And the thought that I wouldn't see him again came in, and I didn't hesitate for 1 minute. I cried. I remember I cried. I shed those tears. I felt the tears streaming down my chin and hitting my shoulders and down. But man, it really felt good after the song finished playing. After the song finished, I felt I had let go of something. And surprisingly, another song came in, which turned out to be a high beat song that struck me into a beautiful mood, and I started having sweet thoughts and feeling grateful at that moment. So that helps in a whole lot of way. It can help you a whole lot. Letting yourself feel your sorrow and accepting that loss will heal you in such a way, a remarkable way you would not believe. I still want to share some other tips on this, but considering the time, there's no way I can treat all of it in this episode, in this short time. So we're going to have to do another episode. We're going to do another approach to this and continue listing some other steps in another episode where we'll round up and maybe that will have it all covered. For now, we just treated 2 steps. We were able to talk about 2 steps considering the time factor. Now remember that these apply to all kind of losses and to every kind of personality. This can totally help you. So thank you very much, guys, for hanging out with us once again on Each with jboi, and stay tuned for the next amazing episodes. Cheers.